This, this is a question that I submitted. It's a compilation of several of the group. What long-term infrastructure plans will help Wisconsin compete and grow in 10 years, 20 years, and beyond? And please tell us, given all the back and forth on the issue of fast rail between Milwaukee and Madison, where rail figures in this future.
I don't think I've been silent on the rail issue, so I probably won't explain that too much in depth. But overall, an infrastructure system. When I talk about my plan, and let me back up for a second. When we talk about, the overall our overall focus in this campaign, clearly, in part because it's of interest, but part because it's the interest of everybody else I talk to, it's about the economy. What are we going to do to get the state working again? How are we going to get the state moving forward? And we have a simple but I think comprehensive plan to get the state working again. Everything from tax reduction, lowering the tax burden, easing the regulatory burden, easing the litigation burden, improvements in education beyond just what I talked about with MPS, help with trying to lower the cost of health care, particularly for small businesses. But the sixth point we talk about is infrastructure. Infrastructure certainly includes transportation, but I'd include cost-effective and reliable sources of power, certainly clean water, which we know in this region probably more than any part of the state. When you look at the water issues between Milwaukee and Waukesha counties and the need to have that worked out scientifically as well as economically. Certainly telecommunications, particularly in the rural parts of the state of Wisconsin. But then when I look at infrastructure, it means the biggest component is transportation. Right now, because of several budgets of this governor rating $1.3 billion out of the state transportation fund, we have roads and bridges that are crumbling. We see it right here in our own community. I mean, the Home Bridge has got netting underneath it. The Zoo interchange, we had to emergency post it for a while and have new bridges put up. We have issues coming up I-94 and other parts of the state. We have congestion on I-90. There are issues all across the state. We need to stop the raid on the transportation fund. We need to permanently block that off. I'd support a constitutional amendment to do that. We need to make sure that in the future we continue to keep that protected. I've looked at alternatives over the long haul to phase in the money we currently collect from the sales tax on automobile-related purchases and just take the growth of that and phase that into the transportation fund to try and make up for the amount that Governor Doyle's rated out of that. All those things I think are key to making sure we've got a good transportation system. I'd start with fixing our existing infrastructure, our roads and our bridges, making sure our local governments have the capacity to fix the streets and the town roads and other things there. I also think it means more than just that. I support freight rail. I think that's something that's a positive part of moving commerce in the state and takes some of the burden off the highway system. I certainly support our ports. The Port of Milwaukee, one of the best pace setters in the country of all the ports in the Great Lakes, the port in Green Bay, and the twin ports actually up in Superior and Duluth, which are one of the biggest employer bases in the state, $300 million of economic impact in Superior. All those, as well as our airports, something we've invested in. My airport I put $200 million in since I've been here, and now we're the fastest growing airport in America. All those things have a direct economic impact. As far as commuter rail, I don't support the proposal that the mayor and the governor put on the table for the $810 million in the high-speed rail line, as much for practical as philosophical reasons. Right now, for us to do that, using their own numbers, the Obama administration numbers, not somebody else's, not my projections, because I think it'll be much higher. But if you assume it is $810 million, they're saying it's $7.5 million or more to operate. To me, that's $7.5 million out of a fund that's already been rated to the tune of $1.3 billion. We can't afford it. We are so far behind in infrastructure right now, and that's key to economic development, not only here in this region, but I was in Eau Claire yesterday. If you're a dairy farmer in Eau Claire and you want to get milk to southeastern Wisconsin, you need to have good roads. If we're talking about tourism, we want people to come from Chicago, which is our biggest market, not only up to Milwaukee, but to Woodruff or to Monaco or other places. The fact that any of you have gone up in those areas recently know in the past few years to, instead of going all the way through Madison and up, taking 45 minutes longer, you can go up to Oshkosh, cut across the 10, take that to Stevens Point, save yourself 45 minutes. Those are all things that have a direct economic impact on the core industries in the state. That's where I want to put my investment.
Those routes you were just talking about, those are highway or
highway roads. Yep.
So let's say you're governor.
Yep.
You stop the Milwaukee to Madison line. What is the future of rail in your infrastructure?
Freight rail plays a key role, and even commuter rail. We're not blocking the Amtrak line that comes through. In fact, I haven't said anything about blocking the upgrades even that were proposed in terms of the Hiawatha line from Chicago here to Milwaukee. I think that's fine. People talk about, hey, if you stop this line from between Milwaukee and Madison, you'll stop the connection to Minneapolis. That's not true either. I mean, right now, you can get on the train at the intermodal station and go to the Twin Cities. You just don't go through Madison. You stop north of there in Columbus at one of the stops along the way. I think that's fine. I have no problem with that. I just have a problem with spending $810 million that I think will probably go far beyond that, because every other rail system in the country is. In California, they're building high-speed rail for $65 million per mile. We're talking about an 80-mile stretch. It's going to be $810 million. Either it's not going to cost that much, which means it's not going to really be high speed, or it's going to cost you a whole lot more than what we're talking about, and we're going to be stuck paying that at a time when we can't afford our current infrastructure. The other practical part I'll tell you on the rail is the reason the Hiawatha works is because you have a population center that's many multiple times bigger than what we're talking about, clearly in Madison, but even in Milwaukee. And it's a regional thing. There's very few people that commute day in and day out between Milwaukee and Chicago. What it is really a regional throughout this part of Wisconsin and beyond, and people come in and say, if I got to go to Chicago once or twice a month for something, if I'm going down the loop, it's much easier to come in and out. There's not a big commuter base between Milwaukee and Madison, and if there is, for people who don't want to ride, all the conveniences you get of the rail system, Wi-Fi, coach seating, bathrooms, air conditioning, you can get without a penny of government subsidy. It's called the Badger Bus. It goes just as many times as we're talking about. It doesn't require a subsidy. It takes you, right through here all the way down to the Capitol and to the campus. The main people who ride that bus are either a handful of state employees that commute back and forth, or college students. That's where the market is. There's just not a huge market in between, and even as we grow, it grows around each of those metropolitan areas, not in between. What we found in transit in general is, for people who are not dependent on transit, for financial, economic, or age reasons, the real reason people use an alternative form is it's got to do one of two things. It's either got to save you money or time. Save you money or time. That's why if you take the Hiawatha downtown, you say on a day when the Eden's tied up, there's an accident or rain or whatever, it's quicker to go in that way. You get work done on the way in. If I get in my little Saturn I bought back in the 90s, that I used to drive, I still drive today, it's got 100,000 miles on it. If I get my Saturn from my house in Wauwatosa, drive downtown to the intermodal station, that takes me 15 minutes by the time I get a parking spot. I pay $8 to park all day there. I get inside, wait for the train, it takes me, presumably according to their estimates, 45 minutes. I now get to the new site, which is at the Monona Terrace. It takes me another 10 to 15 minutes to get up to the Capitol. It's now taking me an hour and 15 minutes minimum, assuming the schedules all line up. That's exactly what it takes me in my car, from the door of my house to the door of the Capitol. It now costs me $20 to $40 round trip, which is really $40 to $60. You add in the $8 for the parking, $2.50 for the bus, or $5 for the taxi. Suddenly I'm paying 5-6 times what it would cost me to drive in my car. It doesn't save me any time, and I'm stuck with the schedule they want to operate on. Anyway,
right.
Not that I feel passionate about that, but